where do we come from? And for that matter, where does this world and this universe that we live in come from? What causes the sunrise every morning and the sunset every evening? What brings the rain, the wind? Why are there earthquakes, tornadoes, whatnot? To answer these questions and others, our human ancestors from ancient times have made up all kinds of myths about gods, demons, and other fantastic beings. In more recent times, however, we have learned that there are better ways of answering these questions, through a process known as science. But there are other questions which are not so easily answered by science, at least not in an immediately obvious and direct way. Questions such as, how do I know what the right and wrong things to do are? How do I deal with my mortality and other things that lie beyond my control? How do I find meaning and purpose in my life? How can I build true community with my peers? And how can I fill the humdrum monotony of my life with something more transcendent? Many people feel that no matter how much we have progressed in the realm of science, we still need our ancient mythologies and superstitions to answer these questions. Some of these people even go so far as to convince themselves that these myths and superstitions are at least partly true so as to be able to use them to fill these gaping voids. But what if we can find ways to fill these voids without resorting to any unsubstantiated assertions at all? Hello Internet, this is Sophia, the Red Angel, doing my best on this channel to produce content that is worth your time to watch and listen to. And this is what I want to talk to you about in this episode, something that I refer to as Atheist Spirituality. Of course, I admit that Atheist Spirituality is a bit of a contested term for what I am referring to. Sometimes the term can mean different things to different people, and some people hear the term spirituality and feel that it implies practices that involve actual spirits, or at least belief in spirits, and other superstitions such as that. I totally get that this is the impression that some people get from the term spirituality, even when it is preceded by the term atheist. For that reason, I am open to suggestion of other terms to use instead of it. But so far, few other terms have been suggested, terms that I find to be either even more problematic or simply not really fitting to what I am referring to. So for the time being at least, Atheist Spirituality is the term that I am going to have to go with. So even if you do not find it to be the best term, please understand that for the duration of this video, the term Atheist Spirituality is to be defined as follows: the set of ideas and practices that are meant to fill the void that religious spirituality used to fill, only to fill these voids without having to resort to any unsubstantiated ideas. As I already stated, the questions that define this void are not questions that can be answered by science in as obvious or as direct a way as the questions about the universe and the world around us and about our own origins. But that does not mean that they cannot be answered by science in a less direct, more subtle way. Let us start with questions of morality.
The question is, can you justify what is moral without God? And I say, no, it's just your opinion if there's no God.
Religious apologists like to claim that there is some universal code of morality that is somehow woven into the fabric of reality, some of them going so far as to insist that nothing can be truly said to be right and wrong without such a thing existing. We in the atheist community have given detailed explanations of why that is not so, and for the sake of time, I am not going to go into details about it in this video, because there are already tons of videos out there on the subject, both from myself as well as from plenty of other atheist content creators far more visible than I am and probably ever will be. Discussing it in this video would be sheer redundancy. Yeah, I can drop a few links in this video's video description area on the topic, but that will barely even be the tiniest fraction of all the stuff that there is out there on the topic. But what about those other questions? Well, the question about how we are to deal with our mortality and other things beyond our control is also something that philosophers have been coming up with secular answers to since ancient times, most notably the Hellenistic and Roman Stoics. And though these ancient philosophers did have supernatural beliefs, at least as far as the surviving records indicate, those supernatural beliefs were in no way regarded as being essential to the philosophy. Instead, when challenged on those supernatural beliefs, instead of defending those beliefs themselves, the philosophers presented arguments as to why their philosophy could hold on its own with or without their supernatural beliefs. And though advances in the understanding of human psychology over the past century or so would require us to tweak the Stoic philosophy somewhat, with those tweaks it can still be a powerful tool in dealing with these things that we cannot control. But what about the issue of finding meaning and purpose in our lives? I mean, religious apologists would, and often do, insist that our lives are pointless and aimless without some supernatural being out there to assign us a purpose. But just as the ancient Stoics found ways to cope with things that we cannot control, a much later movement of philosophers, the existentialists, went into great deal about how we can learn to find our own sense of purpose without having to wait around for some sky daddy to assign one to us. As for building a true community with our peers, that is probably the easiest question on this list. Check to see if there are any atheist meetup groups in your area. Check to see if there are any chapters of the Ethical Society in your area. Or see if there exists a Rationalist Society in your area. And if all these options turn up dry, consider starting something yourself. You may be surprised to find that others, too, are also interested in forming a community of free thinkers. And this brings us to the last question, the one about filling the humdrum monotony of our lives with something more transcendent. But why should that be impossible? We live in an amazing universe and an amazing world within that universe, and we are part of it, interconnected with everything else. The same four forces that have governed even the farthest reaches of the universe since a fraction of a second after the Big Bang are active within every inch of our bodies as well. But this is all fine and dandy in theory. How do we make ourselves feel this connectedness the way religions are able to make people feel connected to imaginary, made-up beings? Well, I would say that our only real disadvantage in this respect is the fact that religion has a head start of a few thousand years of finding ways to do this. But we, on the more free-thinking side of the aisle, have other advantages. A religious ritual or practice for feeling connected to imaginary beings tends to be, in one way or another, rigid. This could be in any form, ranging all the way from strict formulas that have to be adhered to completely, no matter how constricting they might be, to completely forbidding people to use more than the most rudimentary of formulas, no matter how lost and out of place an individual feels without them. This is because the forms of these practices are ones that the religious institutions claim are prescribed by the gods or by God. This can make it difficult for individuals to adapt these rituals to their own individual needs, because any change in the ritual might cause it to be contrary to what the supernatural being in question approves. And since that supernatural being cannot even be demonstrated to actually exist, going to ask that supernatural being for permission to make the modification in question can be difficult. We, however, have no supernatural beings to ask for permission on anything. If one person in our community comes up with a ritual or practice for increasing their awareness of connection to the universe, there is nothing preventing someone else in the community from tweaking it if it needs tweaking to fit their particular needs. And the only thing that would stop them from sharing the tweaked version of the ritual or other practice is intellectual property law, an obstacle that disappears if the ritual or other practice in question is released under a license that is both free and open source. Without a doubt, there are many people who would be able to deconstruct the religious dogmas handed down to them if they were not afraid, deep down, of the spiritual void that would result from doing so. However, while religion does have a head start on us in this area, it does not have any inherent advantage there. And if we in the atheist community put a bit more effort into providing ways to fill those voids without resorting to superstition, we can not only help people who are trapped in religion by fear of that void, but can also make our lives as atheists happier as well. So, what would you like me to discuss in future videos? Let me know in the comments area, or you can join my Discord and let me know there. You can find an invite link to my Discord on my main links page. You can in turn find a link to my main links page in the video description area of this video. You can also find a link there to my Ko-Fi page, which is where you can go to get updates on my channel that I am at present unable to give you on YouTube due to my current channel size. My Ko-Fi page is also where you can go if you wish to support my channel financially, because if you like this channel now, you should see what I will be able to do with it when its funds are no longer limited to whatever I can siphon away from my personal living expenses. Also, do not forget to help my channel grow by liking, sharing, subscribing, and ringing the bell. And until next time, see ya!